Everyone, we're back for the look at the novice events and graded events, looking at those that I thought were interesting and worth keeping an eye out for going forward. And we'll start off with the 12:35, and we're actually going to move another race a bit closer to it. Let's have a look at this one as well. So the 12:35 at Leopardstown on Boxing Day was won by Work Ahead. Now, interestingly, Work Ahead had finished third on first start over hurdles behind Jasmine DeVoe. Now, Jasmine DeVoe had also beaten the Enabler. So Jasmine DeVoe won it, went winning quite comfortably from the Enabler and Work Ahead. That was probably a very good performance from Jasmine DeVoe, wasn't it? The Cheltenham bumper winner has probably ran a huge effort in that race at Navan, and on the back of those two performances from the Enabler and Work Ahead, you've got to be thinking that Jasmine DeVoe is probably a very, very good horse. I'm just having a look at the odds for the Supreme Novice on my other screen at the moment. We've got Salvatore Mundi as the favourite. What is Jasmine DeVoe? Jasmine DeVoe is a big price, you know, at 14s and 16s. Nothing wrong with the form. The horses behind have come out and won. Is a Cheltenham bumper winner. I think that's probably the one I'm most interested in the Supreme at the moment. It would be Jasmine DeVoe. On the back of Salvatore Mundi, I don't know whether that was just a one-off performance, and you know, the horse did run in the Triumph last year, didn't it? And it wasn't particularly good. Just having a look at where Salvatore Mundi finished in the Triumph. Had previously ran and finished 6th, beaten 17 lengths. Okay, it might have been that, you know, the form behind Sergino was very good, and then absolutely hacked up, beating Mrs. TK at Tipperary. But Mrs. TK is quite average, isn't the horse? Mrs. TK has since finished 5th of 15 and 5th of 11, beaten in very moderate races. So Salvatore Mundi, it just didn't have anything to beat that day, and I think we're overestimating how good that was. Whereas Jasmine DeVoe's form, it's been franked multiple times. I think that's stronger form at this stage than the likes of Salvatore Mundi. Romeo Coolio, I think, wants a bit further. I'm just looking at the odds of those at the head of the market. Kopek de Board was good, but yeah, I think Jasmine DeVoe is the one that I'd want to be on at the moment for the Supreme Novice, especially based on these two efforts from the Enabler and Work Ahead. Moving on to the Form B, the 2 mile novices hurdle. Now, interestingly, Potter's Charm won this, and you can get 33s about Potter's Charm for the Supreme Novice. Despite dropping back in trip, winning another Grade 1, the horse is still 33 to 1, and it kind of demonstrates the strength of the British horses. They're not that good in the novice events. They're not that good in the 2 mile novice events. I think we will see Potter's Charm back up in trip. The one I'm probably most interested in here was actually the 5th placed Country Mile. Now, Country Mile for Dan Skelton has been to Cheltenham, just having a look, just the once. Went to Cheltenham in a novices hurdle qualifier and beat Wingman comfortably. That now means he's had he's had 4 runs over hurdles. He's currently rated 138. He might drop after this week, after finishing 5th in that Grade 1. For a horse that had clearly shown plenty of ability, finishing 2nd in a Grade 2, winning a hurdle race, and then only going off 11 to 2 for a Grade 1. Could be quite nice for the county hurdle, and Dan Skelton has a very good record in that county hurdle. He could have 2 nice types there for that in Country Mile and Valgrand for the county hurdle. So yeah, Country Mile is probably the one I'm most interested in there going forward. Going to Leopardstown, and Hello Neighbour was winning at Leopardstown, beating all of the rivals, obviously. Lady Vega Allen finishing 2nd. The disappointing horse was Willie de Hoy. But Willie de Hoy had previously finished 2nd to Nietzsche Haas And Nietzsche Haas actually came over to England and won what did he win? The grade 2 Coral Finale Juvenile Hurdle. So the form isn't bad. It's not that Willie de Hoy just hasn't been doing it yet for Willie Mullins. Now, on his first run, when second to Naturally Nimble, he was a bit keen, didn't jump great. There was probably excuses for him that day. And to be honest, I think there was excuses again this on Boxing Day, wasn't there? Willie Mullins' horses are bang out of form. He's now had 3 runs over hurdles, and I just wonder whether they might go for a race at the Dublin Racing Festival and then end up at Cheltenham. And if he gets beat at the Dublin Racing Festival, he could end up in that. Boodles, imagine being a favourite for the Triumph Hurdle for so long, ending up running in the Boodles. He's actually had 4 runs over hurdles already. He ran at Compiègne as well over hurdles. The handicapper could give him a mark now. That could be interesting to keep an eye out for the handicap mark of Willie de Hoy. In actual fact, we might have that already. I'm just going to pause the video and have a look. We don't have a mark yet for Willie de Hoy, but keep an eye out for that one. If it ends up running again and getting beat again, it could end up in the Boodles and be a very well handicapped hurdler in the Boodles. There's definitely more to come from Willie de Hoy. On the back of this run, I initially thought it's just nowhere near as good as Connections had hoped. However, the Willie Mullins form now, in hindsight, could be a reason why that disappointed so badly there. 120 at Kempton, the Counter-Star Novices Chase. I was very impressed with the Jukebox Man, who showed his ability over fences. He jumped really well and was always going to beat Highland and Massacio. I don't mind that form. I actually don't mind. I think the horse is good. I really do. And something like the Coral Trophy next year could well be where they look at. The Coral Gold Cup, sorry. Formerly the Hennessy. Or even the King George next year. I mean, he's won at Kempton now. He's won over 3 mile. And he won it really nicely. And he jumped really well. He's only 6. There's still more to come from him, I'm sure. He could end up in the King George next year. And he's currently available at 16s for that. And I think, looking at those around him, like, why couldn't he get involved? There were so many in it this year that didn't look like they were proper King George horses. Banbridge was one that did, and we did highlight Banbridge in our analysis video. Beat Ilete Francais, who had previously won the novice versions, the Calto Star. I kind of feel that the Jukebox Man is still being underestimated, and I think he's better than what we've already given him credit for. He's a very nice horse. He's finished 2nd in Grade 1s. He's now won his own Grade 1. I think the Jukebox Man is going to be a nice horse over fences. I think he's going to be one of the better English horses over fences. And could well come to the King George next year being the #1 hope from Britain. Moving on to Lossiemouth versus Constitution Hill. I thought Constitution Hill beat Lossiemouth on merit. They were comfortably beating Burdett Road. They were going to go away even more at the finish. Yes, Burdett Road made a mistake at the last as well. But Burdett Road is only a 4-year-old, still probably improving, has probably ran a good race, whereas Lump Sum was absolutely walloped by those 3. I felt Lossiemouth couldn't keep up. I thought she looked like she lacked 2 miles speed at Kempton. We've got to remember, I always say that Kempton is shorter than 2 miles. So if it's a 2 mile race, I think it's about 1 mile 6. And she just didn't have the pace to go with Constitution Hill. She'd be better at Cheltenham for sure. It's a tricky one now for Willie Mullins and Rich Ritchie, because the O'Learys and Gordon Elliott are adamant that Brighter Days Ahead is going to run in the mares. Well, you could end up going, okay, we'll run State Man in the Champion Hurdle and probably get beat by Constitution Hill. We run Lossiemouth in the mares and probably get beat by Brighter Days Ahead. What do you do? Is Lossiemouth worth having another go at the champion hurdle and hoping that they go fast enough that she can finish strongly, where Stateman probably can't do that as well as Lossiemouth. I think Lossiemouth stays in the champion hurdle, to be honest. He runs Stateman and Lossiemouth and hopes one of them can beat Constitution Hill. I'm sure he did that a few years ago, didn't he, Willie Mullins? With did he not run two of them in the what was it? The Supreme. He ran Kilcruit, Bring on the Night, and Dysart Dynamo in the Supreme Novice against Constitution Hill, because I think he thought he didn't know whether he could beat them with any of them, and in the end he didn't beat them with any of them. I think he might run a couple of them in the champion hurdle still. I think Lossiemouth stays in the champion hurdle, and she's going to improve for going back to Cheltenham and that stiffer track. Constitution Hill's going to improve for having fitness on his side. I still think Constitution Hill wins that. I think Constitution Hill wins the champion hurdle. Probably Lossiemouth finishes second, Stateman third, and Brighter Days Ahead wins the mares comfortably. Moving on to the King George, won by Banbridge, who looked like the only horse that this all kind of fell into place for. I feel the couple that might be worth taking out of the race. Corbett's Cross, I'm still convinced needs a lot further. I'm still really liking him for the Grand National. That was a nice run for me, finishing 6th, in the fact that I didn't want him to get close because I didn't want him to be aimed at the Gold Cup. He was held up out the back, some headway, not pace to challenge. Yeah, he does not have the speed for King George's, Gold Cups, any of that. He does have the speed. He doesn't need the speed. He does have the ability for a Grand National. I don't think the handicapper will touch his mark. He'll have to run off 165, but I think he could win a Grand National off 165. I do think that's the perfect race for him. His best performance and most impressive for me was when winning the National Hunt Challenge Cup over 3 miles 6, and I hope he does end up in that Grand National. The other horse that's definitely interesting is Il Était Francais. Bounced back in England and has now performed twice in England, and both times has been very, very impressive. Or without winning, although he didn't win last time out, he still ran a huge race in that King George. You take out Banbridge, he beats L'Empresse by 10 lengths. At Kempton, previously in the Calta Start, jumped, made all the running. Nothing could catch him that year. Granted, it wasn't as strong. Hermes Hélène, definitely wasn't good enough for a King George this year. But finishing second in the King George behind Banbridge. Why does that horse not return to Cheltenham for the Ryanair? In the Ryanair, I think he would go really well. And if we just have a look at the odds. Cheltenham Festival. Let's have a little look. What day is the Ryanair on now? Banbridge is 6s. Gaelic Warrior is 6s, 7s. Factophile, El Fabiolo, Il Était Francais is 12s. Now, he could easily get to the front here and run them ragged. I don't think Factophile will go there. I think he will still end up in the Gold Cup. El Fabiolo, you're relying on a horse bouncing back, really. Gaelic Warrior, I still probably think runs in the Champion Chase. Banbridge, yes, he won the King George and he ran down Il Était Francais, but that was over 3 mile, and he's been to Cheltenham and disappointed in the King George. The Ryanair, sorry. He finished 9th of 11 in the Ryanair. Wasn't good enough. Yes, he's won at Cheltenham before, beating Tommy's Oscar. That's nothing to shout home about. And he beat Cobbler's Dream in a Martin Pipe. Again, at Cheltenham, I would expect a lot of those, or all of those, in the King George to have beaten those 2 horses at Cheltenham. But when he came up against some better horses at Cheltenham, Banbridge disappointed. I think Il Était Francais is very interesting in that King George, in the Ryanair, sorry, at 12s. I think he should be a lot closer in the betting with Banbridge, because at Cheltenham, over that trip, there shouldn't be a lot between them, and Il Était Francais is probably still improving. He is only 6, and if he'd got the last right, maybe he would have held on. So yeah, he's interesting, I think, going forward for that Ryanair. Moving on to the Hunter's Chase. Now, this is an interesting one as well. It's on the Line got beat by Big Interest at Down Royal. I'm not too bothered about that, to be honest. In terms of, I will probably be backing It's on the Line as a short price favourite in the Hunter Chase at Cheltenham. The horse is only 7. Still only 7, turning 8. So he's not too old now. And without being disrespectful to the jockey, Miss O'Sullivan has now ridden It's on the Line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times. Form on the horse is 4th, 2nd, 2nd, 3rd, 1st, 1st, 2nd. So it's actually been beaten more times than has won on the horse. As soon as Derek gets back on, I think he'll give him a much better ride. He was given far too much to do here. Big Interest was allowed to run free at the front, whereas It's on the Line was too far back. Derek O'Connor wouldn't allow that at Cheltenham. He would be much closer. And yeah, I think It's on the Line reverses the form come Cheltenham Festival. And because of that, the horse is actually potentially a backable price now at Cheltenham. I think you can get 5 to 2. There is only the one bookmaker pricing it up at the moment, but you know, if all of the others come out at 5 to 2, I'd be quite happy with that, to be honest. It's on the Line. The Paddy Rewards Chase, Solness beat Gaelic Warrior and Marine National. I think Gaelic Warrior hasn't run to form. I also think Solness was given a perfect ride. Gaelic Warrior probably given too much to do, but it was his first run back. You can see he hadn't run for 239 days. Everything else had to run. Going forward, Gaelic Warrior will still end up being the best of these. Now that he's got fitness on his side, I'm sure he'll take all of the beating next time in a Champion Chase trial or a Champion Chase at the Dublin Racing Festival. The Grade 2 Wayward Lad Novices Chase, Sergino beat Ballyburn, and to be honest, I thought this was super impressive. This was a wow moment for me. That was a spectacular round of jumping. He never let Ballyburn get close or put him under any sort of pressure. He was just far, far too good. He's still unbeaten. His form is still red hot. If we do believe that Salvatore Monday form, he's beaten Salvatore Monday. He's beaten Burdett Road comfortably. He's beaten Cargès comfortably. He's beaten Lump Sum comfortably. And now he's beaten Ballyburn comfortably. I would put him bang up there. He's above Shishkin already for me. He's not far off Altior, even after just the one run over fences. And I really liked Altior. I thought this was a hugely impressive performance. I can see Sergino being as good as, or being rated as good as Sprinter Sacra in the future. I thought this was a monster effort. And yeah, that is the best novice chase performance I've seen in a long, long time. And Ballyburn just didn't have the pace to go with him. It still ran a nice race, but, you know, won't be running in an Arkle. Whoops. Moving on to the 105 now. This caught my eye at Limerick. Let me just sort this back out, sorry. Final Demand winning at Limerick in a maiden hurdle over 2 mile 5. Quietly was very, very impressive, Final Demand. It, kept away from the big races, won by 15 lengths. Super impressive for Willie Mullins and Danny Mullins. Now, obviously, Willie Mullins' form is also a bit suspect at the moment. This screamed Albert Bartlett to me. I was really, really impressed with this. And it was the first horse that I've seen that I've gone, oh, that's an Albert Bartlett type. Really impressed with Final Demand, and he has been priced up for that. Let's just have a look, see if we can see it. We can. Final Demand at 14s and 16s, or 14s. I think that's a fair price about him. I think he's going to play a massive part in that race. We've talked about that race. Savills Hurdle. Bob Ollinger just doesn't stay 3 mile. As soon as he comes back for 2.5 at Aintree or at, I think there's a race at Punchestown, that's when I'll be backing Bob Ollinger again. 2.5 is his ideal trip. Galopin des Champs beating Factor File. Now, it was very impressive. For me, honestly, it wasn't unexpected. His form at Leopardstown is just so good. Last year, he won that race by 23 lengths. He'd beaten Fast or Slow there comfortably by 4.5 lengths. He'd beaten Statler there by 8 lengths comfortably. He'd beaten Master McShee by 9 lengths comfortably. He'd beaten Ain't That Shame by 22 lengths comfortably. He just loves Leopardstown. He is the best horse at Leopardstown at the moment by a long, long way. That's not an issue. He got the right trip as well. He's more than, he'd been beaten at Punchestown on his return. He got beat again this year. He did it last year. I can't see him getting beat in the Gold Cup. I don't know what can beat him in the Gold Cup now. There's nothing good enough for me. They've all shown their hands, and at Cheltenham, which we also know that Galopin Des Champs loves, he will take all of the beating. He'll beat Jerry Colombi again. He'll outstay him. He'll beat Factor File because he's just a better horse than Factor File. And you can see the rest of them are massive prices. Yeah, Galopin Des Champs will go and win the Gold Cup again, I feel. 2 to go. I want to talk about the New Lion. Wow, this for me was the most impressive performance. Winning the Grade 1 Challow Novices Hurdle. Why? The move that made this the most impressive was actually coming into the last, when Harry went, instead of staying down the inside, he's like, actually, I'll just take him back slightly, come around the other side, and then quicken into the last, and then go away. That, for me, was Harry Skelton going, watch what I can do with this horse and still win. I don't need to be going for it just yet. I can even lose lengths at this point in the race and still know that I'm going to pick up. And sometimes you see horses travel nicely, and when they're asked to extend away, they don't always pick up, or they don't pick up super quick, and it's like, okay, he travelled nicely, didn't appear to have a turn of foot. This horse did. He quickened when he was asked to, and put lengths between them in a matter of strides. That was super impressive for me. Wendigo was just given a ride to pick up the pieces. Bill Joyce tried to take on a future star. Regent's Stroll just wasn't good enough. But yeah, for me, this was the best novice hurdle performance I've seen. And he'll be running in the Turners, I'm sure. He won't go up to 3. They've suggested that he might be a champion hurdle horse next year. Well, if that's the case, they'll be going 2.5 at most, and after the race the trainer said yeah, we'll stick to middle distances. There's absolutely no need to drop him in trip. He's won over 2 mile 3, 2 mile 4, 2 mile 4. Why would they then end up running in the Supreme Novice over 2 mile? That would not make sense to me. Stick to 2.5. I think you win it. Hopefully Jasmine DeVoe goes to the Supreme, and if Jasmine DeVoe does go to the Supreme, the New Lion has, in my opinion, not a lot to beat in terms of quality, deep form. The New Lion is, for me, comfortably better than Potter's Charm. Was available at 4s, now 100 to 30. I don't think that's a bad price still. I think this horse could go off nearer evens, if not odds on, come Cheltenham. And finally, the last race we need to talk about is the Grade 1 over 2 mile, won by Brighter Days Ahead in very, very impressive fashion. The few things that you can take and look at this race. First of all, Stateman's been beaten by Winter Fog. That does mean Stateman has underperformed, for sure, because Stateman should be beating Winter Fog comfortably. But even if you gave Stateman the ability to his normal ability and said, you know, he can beat Winter Fog 15, 20 lengths, he's still behind Brighter Days Ahead. That for me was, I don't think Stateman has so badly underperformed that he would have beaten Brighter Days Ahead. Even at his best, Brighter Days Ahead might have won, you know. How Brighter Days Ahead got beat at Cheltenham last year, I have no idea. Connections have come out and said that Brighter Days Ahead stays in the mares. And with that, I think she stays in the mares and she'll win. She'll have nothing to beat. And Lossymouth stays in the champion hurdle so that they have 2 goes. Willie Mullins has 2 goes with Stateman and Lossymouth at Constitution Hill. Yeah, I think maybe Brighter Days Ahead is just a machine and she hadn't quite been given the credit that she deserved. up to that point. Very, very, very impressive. For me, as I said, I think the most impressive performance came from the New Lion. But Brighter Days Ahead would be right up there. I would probably go the New Lion, Sergino, Brighter Days Ahead. For me, I think they were the three biggest, most impressive performances over the Christmas period. So there's a few thoughts about some of those from graded races, where I think they might end up, or which horses are definitely worth keeping an eye on going forward. Particularly, Jasmine DeVoe's form looks very strong. Country Mile could end up in a county hurdle. Willie de Hoy, we'll keep an eye out to see if that ends up in the Boodles. The Jukebox Man, I really like that, to be fair. Is going to be the best of the British. Keep an eye on the handicap mark as well for the Coral Gold Cup next year. Constitution Hill, I think, beat Lossiemouth on merit. Il Était Francais could be interesting for the Ryanair. The drop back in trips slightly will definitely suit. It's on the line. Keeps getting beat under this jockey. When Derek takes back over, I think he'll be much better. Gaelic Warrior probably needed the run. Final Demand looks good for the Albert Bartlett. Sergino, I thought that was the best performance, novice chase performance I've seen in a long, long time. Bob Ollinger doesn't stay 3 mile. Galopin de Champ was good, but I was kind of expecting that at Leopardstown. The New Lion, super, super impressive. And Brighter Days Ahead, super, super impressive.